Welcome to this session on the second day of the GSE UK Virtual Conference 2021. It will be all about driving the DevOps pipeline, a new approach to mainframe application delivery. I will be your main presenter for the day, and my name is Julia Sermon. I'll start with getting the admin out of the way. Just to remind you, this is session 2AG. And at the end of the presentation, I will also remind you if you would be able to please complete a feedback form, it would be much appreciated. And you will be able to do so with both a link and the QR code that you can see on the screen. Also, this year, GSE UK is holding a charity raffle. If you would in any way be able to donate something to this year chosen charities, which are the Royal National Lifeboat Institution and the Guide Dogs for the Blind charities, you will be able to donate through either the link on the screen. If we could please put it in the chat in case anyone wants to donate, or you can also scan the QR code at the bottom of the slide with your phone camera as well. When you have donated, you can follow the link on your receipt to enter the receipt number and amount donated, and you will be entered once per every pound donated in the raffle. So as I said, I will be your main presenter for today. My name is Julia Thurman, and I am a pre-sales consultant in the Enterprise Solutions portfolio in Micro Focus. I have been doing this for just about a year and a half. I know I'm quite new, but I'm very passionate in this field, and I am really looking forward to learning more and more and just becoming the expert that I desire to be. When I am not working, I enjoy cuddling with my cats and usually watching a movie or a Netflix show. And I'm accompanied by Gary Evans. Gary, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name's Gary Evans, as it says here. I am a product manager with Enterprise Solutions at Micro Focus, but with a specific focus around modernization of practices for development and testing for mainframe solutions. So that's me. Back to you, Julia.
Thank you very much. I'll start with a quick agenda for the day so we can set the correct expectations. I will try to be brief in talking about the bigger picture of DevOps and its market challenges. We all know that's a big topic, so I will do my best to be brief. And then I will present you two fictional customer scenarios that I made up, essentially taking inspiration from what I actually see in my day-to-day job. But they're actually just fictional. I didn't want to share any actual customer information today. And I will then explain what our recommended solution would be for helping these customers in their modernization journey towards a DevOps delivery model. And then a brief conclusion. I will also stop for questions after the first customer, just before starting with the second, to give you a chance to ask anything that you would like to. So let's make a start. As I was saying, DevOps is a really large topic, and we could probably spend all day talking about it and not even get close to exhausted. And usually when we talk to our customers in Micro Focus, we see two streams of motivators to begin a digital transformation journey or a drive towards DevOps and agile methodologies journey. There is, as you can see on the screen, what we call the above the line mandate, which is what essentially is shown above the surface and what actually directly impacts the revenue of the enterprise. These are topics such as the very well-known digital business expansion. It looks like essentially every company needs to be a digital company and every company needs to be an IT company nowadays. That is absolutely necessary, but it cannot take away anything else from what is already the established well-known and trusted customer base. So there is a very strong need to enable mobility and accessibility of services, not just digitally, but also for those people that maybe cannot access the internet, for example, or cannot even see a screen. So to be able to essentially differentiate and personalize the customer service and experience, as well as products, to make sure that it targets every need that the customers might have to ensure success. Another big one is customer service. I am sure we all have had that moment in our life where we experienced bad customer service and we did not go back to the company or service that we were trying to use or trying to access. Customer service needs to be absolutely impeccable in order to be not just keeping the customer base, which is trusting customers, but also to find new customers. And of course, all of this can be powered by data analytics. When we're talking in this field about companies, enterprises, we're talking about companies that are very well established in their marketplace and are very likely to already have a large amount of data available to them. And so it is very important that this really precious data is used to the best of the enterprise's capabilities to actually help in personalizing products and services for their customers, as well as just crunching all of those data items to be able to understand where they might need to expand, for example, or what they might need to change to respond to the needs of their customers, as I said before. The next so-called stream of motivators to modernize is what we call the below-the-line mandate. And these are things that are, you could say, under the surface. So they're things that less directly impact the revenue, but still are very important to optimize the enterprise and to ensure success. So the first one that we hear, especially in our day-to-day job, is cost reduction. Cost reduction is really important and it can be achieved in many ways. One of the ones that we do hear a lot of is to remove all of that tooling that, for example, is historical and is either not used anymore, but still the license is being paid for, or does not respond to the needs of the enterprise as well as it used to do. So it needs to be optimized and changed to something, its new version, for example, or another product that better responds to what the needs of, for example, development, testing, and so on is. We do hear a lot of this, especially in development and testing. And specifically with testing, actually, we do hear a lot about re-engineering this process that can be very time-consuming and effort-consuming for the teams involved as well. And something simple like making a few changes to the actual process. We hear a lot about automation, for example, of testing, can really help generate new revenue by cutting those costs that are going into, that are essentially wasted in the very long testing processes. All of these, of course, respond to the very forward need of adopting Agile and or DevOps methodologies or delivery models. And last but not least, we also have risk management. So you might have already heard the quotes that it is not, unfortunately, a matter of if a data breach will occur, but when. This is very unfortunate, but it really makes you think about the fact that the world that we live in today really has, especially for enterprises such as the ones that we usually have to deal with in our fields, there really is a need to put security at the very forefront of the enterprise's mind. Risk management doesn't just save costs by avoiding the fines that would be linked with, for example, a data breach. It also will help ensure the customers are trusting the company with their sensitive data, and they will keep the service if the enterprise can prove that they keep the data safe. So it's not just cutting costs, it can also generate new revenue by ensuring that customers are happy and will happily talk about the service to their friends and family and so on. We have all seen it, we have all done it. So with this, I really hope this painted a wide enough picture. As I said, we could be talking about this all day, but I will go on to present to you our first fictional customer. This customer is called the Bank of Cooper. They are a medium-sized bank in the UK. On the screen here, you can see the picture of their CTO, Dale Cooper. So we've had a lot of meetings with him in the past few weeks, and they have helped us understand essentially where they need help in optimizing their processes. So currently they have the vast majority of their estate on running on IBM Z15. All of their core banking applications are running on Z15. They use IMS as a transaction manager as well as a database, and they have a lot of back jobs running both daily and monthly. They have very high workload peaks at specific times of month and the year, so much so that they actually decided a few years ago to put a code freeze in place during the months of November and December to be able to essentially lend the MSUs to production from their development and testing logical partition. At the time, a few things that they have mentioned that they're struggling with, aside from this, are they have actually analyzed a little bit of their current customer base, and they noticed that the age average is actually quite high, and they're really struggling to appeal to new and younger customer. Admittedly, this might be because of the lack of variety of products tailored for younger customers, as well as the fact that their mobile application is probably not at the best of its capabilities, and they have been receiving several end user complaints about it. For this reason, as well, costs have been regularly increasing as they're just struggling to get new revenue through new customers. So to summarize what Bank of Cooper's actual pain points are, we have the strong need to make their accessibility of services and products better. We have the need to enlarge the customer base and possibly specifically to younger customers, which will require both better mobile and online features, as well as tailored products for that specific age group. And they will also need to drastically reduce their total cost of ownership, as well as manage the risk, because they will be handling a lot of sensitive data. Ultimately, what we would recommend for this customer is that they just start to dip their toes into a journey towards an agile or DevOps delivery model for their software. So to start off with our proposed solution, in this diagram, you can see what Bank of Cooper's current architecture looks like. You can see the majority of the estate on the IBM Z platform. They have the production logical partition and the development and testing logical partition. They have their IMS databases that are tightly connected with both partitions, and they currently use Endeavor as their software change and configuration management tool. As for what it concerns connectivity, they have several types of mainframe connectivity to external data providers, as well as their end user application platforms. So essentially they're Windows servers on which the front-facing website and applications run. And then they have what I hear called just the development platform. And what I mean by this is the endpoint devices that developers and other employees use to access the applications, both on the development and testing LPAR as well as production. They're currently using a TN3270 emulator with a thick client. So this is just what they're currently working with. So my first recommendation would actually be to establish an agile planning platform with a planning and monitoring tool. There are many available on the market, and we do not necessarily recommend any of them. We have one. There are many companies that offer excellent solutions for this. It will be very important for them to be able to have a more end-to-end coverage and monitoring, and being able to plan and link back to business rules into every single step of their software development lifecycle. And then we would also recommend that they reorganize their teams for development and testing into feature teams, actually. Bank of Cooper has said that they're specifically struggling to focus onto the creation and development of new features for their applications, for their mobile applications. So this small cultural change would actually help them, help their teams actually be able to focus on one specific feature at a time, end to end, from the development to the deployment. And as I said, with the help of a planning tool and monitoring tool, this would likely speed up the process of developing new features a lot. Our second recommendation would actually be to shift testing completely off of the ZOS platform. So their testing and development logical partition would actually only become a development partition. By doing this, they would be able to essentially permanently utilize the MSUs that were previously used for test capacity to production, and eliminate the code freeze period to be able to really enable what feature teams would need, which is parallel test, as well as just speeding up the process of getting a return on investment, because with the cultural change already happening, at least the developers would have a flatter learning curve, as they wouldn't need to learn too many new tools, considering that we would recommend keeping the development on TSO. Next, we would recommend that Bank of Cooper choose a infrastructure as a service platform of their choice. We're completely agnostic with that. They could, there are many cloud service providers that offer this feature, and they could even opt for their own on-premise solution with a containerization service such as Docker. And so this is because with feature teams, the testing capacity overall would likely be reduced, but the peaks would occasionally increase since because of the adoption of essentially parallel tests. The adoption of an infrastructure as a service platform would be allowing them to scale up and scale out on demand with what we could call a pay-as-you-go model. So they would only pay for the capacity that they actually utilize when needed by the testing infrastructure. On the infrastructure as a service platform, we would recommend the use of our enterprise test server product, which is essentially a a product that runs is able to run a full coverage test infrastructure that emulates the infrastructure that you would have on a mainframe for testing. And instances can be set up and deployed with RESTful APIs. So it would be a very quick process to set them up, as well as they can be destroyed when needed, so that capacity wouldn't be utilized too much and essentially wasted. This way, the deployment time would be significantly reduced, as the test infrastructure will not have the bottlenecks that could happen, and they did see with their previous architecture. And the code freeze period would be able to be completely removed, so that they would be able to keep up to speed with the market at any time of the year when they need to release any new features or products. For the finishing touches, we would also recommend that Bank of Cooper adopts a continuous integration and continuous deployment automation tool. Again, there are many available on the market, and they could even choose an open source one, sorry, to really drastically reduce, excuse me, the total cost of ownership of their estate. And this would be able to both communicate with Enterprise Test Server and Endeavor and the mainframe, as well as the Agile Planning tool, to really ensure that end-to-end coverage and ensure business rules are followed. And the last suggestion is actually to adopt a tool for permanent encryption of test data samples. So this would essentially allow them to extract test data samples from their IMS database, permanently encrypt them, utilize them for testing, produce the reports needed, and then destroy the both the region and the data in order to be completely compliant with all the data privacy laws in the UK today. So this is the picture that we would paint for this customer. And I'm now going to stop for questions. So if anyone has one, I see an item in the chat, but I'm not sure if I can actually view it. Oh, yes, I can. So question is, can the customer existing testing, debugging, or full diagnosis tools be deployed on the enterprise test server from Micro Focus? Gary, would you be able to take this one?
Yeah, hi. So the simple answer to that is no. So those are ZOS specific technologies. So they run on the Z platform. The Micro Focus testing tools come with its own equivalent of those particular features.
That said, though, the debugging specifically can be done with another Micro Focus tool that can run not on, but in parallel to Enterprise Test Server. So we do have a tool for development specifically, which includes both editing, debugging, and some unit testing of code as well. So there would be that possibility specifically for debugging to be, it wouldn't run on Enterprise Test Server, but it would run in parallel, and it would be connected to Enterprise Test Server, essentially. And we call that Enterprise Developer. I will actually talk about it in the next customer a little bit. So yeah, I hope this answered the question, and I'm just going to wait 1 second to see if there's any more coming in. Okay, thank you very much for the question. I'm just going to minimize the chat. Perfect, and continue. So we're on to our second customer, who is an insurance company this time, and Harlock & Sons Insurance. And on the screen here, you can see their CEO, TL Harlock, with whom, again, we've been speaking for a while, actually. We have been in contact with this company for several years already. And they're an interesting one because they have already made the choice years ago to adopt a hybrid approach to their architecture. So what they currently on ZOS, they have two logical partition, development and testing and production. On this production partition, there is the majority of their core applications, but one of their applications has been shifted already to the cloud because this was the quoting application, and due to the increase in popularity of aggregator websites, it was actually consuming the vast majority of the MSUs in the entire production partition. So they've already made this decision to put it on a on-demand pay-as-you-go model on the cloud to be able to ensure the availability of this service. They have also already started to shift into feature teams when they made this first decision. So their journey towards DevOps is actually a lot more just a lot more forward. They're a lot more ahead than the previous customer in their journey. They have shared, though, some challenges that they have been having lately. So they have admitted that agile planning is proving quite difficult on the current architecture. They have had issues dealing with the diversity of infrastructures, of tooling, as well as the vast amount of different tools that they're currently using for development are actually very heavy in terms of costs. And as a result of these challenges that specifically target development, unfortunately, deployment of new features and functionalities in their end user applications are severely slowed down. So again, to summarize, Harlock & Sons Insurance pain points, we have a strong need to standardize tooling that they use and own, as well as probably re-engineer the development process a little bit because they have flagged it as the main reason why deployment is slowed down. They have the need to expand their digital business to ensure that customers can access their services through these aggregator websites if need be. And they also, of course, just like everybody else, need to reduce their total cost of ownership. Again, we would recommend that Harlock & Sons takes a leap forward, essentially, in their drive towards DevOps, a DevOps delivery model. So just like for the previous customer, this is just the diagram for what they currently have. They have their production and development and testing logical partitions on ZOS, their DB2 as their database of choice, and again, Endeavor are as their software change and configuration management tool. And then they have their cloud platform with, again, a production partition and a development and testing partition. The connectivity is both directly from ZOS as well as from the cloud platform, which currently runs on a similar product to the one that I was talking about earlier. It's called Enterprise Server. It essentially just emulates the functionality of, it's a runtime environment for mainframe native applications. So we have a lot of connectivity that is put under a lot of strain, unfortunately, because of how much workload this application specifically consumes. And then they also have a very, very wide variety of TN3270 emulation software. Some of this is historic, so they've had it for several decades. And some of this has been purchased more recently to enable more diversified access as well as more functionality for their developers. This unfortunately means that they have many different tools that are not just confusing for their teams, and it can sometimes end up into, for example, someone gets confused with the with ports, and developers end up using each other ports, and this causes even more pronounced delays in the work that they need to do. As well as it just being currently too expensive, as it's so many differentiated licenses that they need to keep up with. And so unfortunately, all of this, because of the struggles with the cultural changes, as well as this variety of tooling, this is just hindering their ability to provide efficient customer service and products as well. So what we would recommend to Harlock & Sons Insurance is to actually set up a container service on their cloud platform. You can see Docker on the screen, but we would just be able to work with absolutely any of their choice. I just put the Docker logo, as it essentially is a metaphor for, is a symbol, sorry, for containers. This way, as you can see, as you will be able to see in the next step, they will be able to harness the power of the cloud platform that they already have and that they already utilize with the at the most of its capabilities. So they will be able to scale up, scale out, just paying for what they utilize when they utilize it. And we would also recommend that they remove all of those TN3270 emulators that are so confusing and so take up so much capacity and so much time for their teams during their day-to-day job. So what we would suggest instead is that they set up a lightweight editor, such as Visual Studio Code. We would actually recommend Visual Studio Code, supported by other tooling for development, as well as some testing. This way, they would finally be able to standardize the tool that every single feature team would be using. Yes, with different features, depending on what team we are talking about, but at least the tool would be the same. And finally, it would have a streamlined, direct way to connect to both production and testing and, development environments. For those developers that need to work on features that still end up in production on ZOS, we will recommend the adoption of the Zoe add-on for Visual Studio Code to slim down the connectivity and be able to provide some more end-to-end coverage. I have actually seen a few interesting sessions that are, I think, this afternoon or tomorrow about new functionalities in Zoe, and I would probably recommend those, and I will definitely be watching those myself. So for what it concerns the cloud infrastructure, so the quoting application essentially, we will recommend the use of VS Code, so the same exact software with support from our enterprise developer product, which is the one that we were mentioning earlier. It's essentially a complete IDE that supports development for mainframe native applications. In this case, we will use the lightweight version supported by Visual Studio Code as the editor to make it really, really lightweight overall. We will recommend that they deploy Enterprise Developer in containers, to which each instance of VS Code can be linked to with just a few simple customization features in the settings. I've actually worked with VS Code, and it's, despite being a little bit, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's a really powerful tool for a seasoned developer. So Utilizing this type of infrastructure, we would recommend that they essentially utilize Docker image files to deploy every instance when needed, then connect their Visual Studio Code instance to the container running Enterprise Developer. And then they would be able to perform unit testing when needed directly from the developers. This would allow for a very steep shift left of testing, hence reducing the need essentially for heavy functional testing tools as well as processes. This would absolutely slim down the process of testing, as essentially it would mainly, functional testing specifically, as it would mainly be completed through the use of Enterprise Developer and Visual Studio Code. This would just avoid the bottlenecks that they have been experiencing in the past few years, and overall reduce the costs, as almost all of the tools that we are talking about are actually open source, aside from Enterprise Developer. So, although we wouldn't recommend that they do this immediately, for the near future, as soon as these changes are implemented and as soon as their teams learn to use the new tools, we would also recommend that they set up a performance testing tool that also runs on Docker to be able to efficiently test this quoting application for performance in order to be able to ensure the service is up at all times, and only pay for the infrastructure that they use when they use it. But again, this is not something that we would recommend they do immediately. We would actually recommend a step-by-step approach to this customer, as they are still struggling with the previous changes that they have implemented a few years ago. I see something in the chat. I'm just going to conclude and then open for questions. What I would like you to take away from this essentially is what you've seen today is two very different fictional customer scenarios, which do represent what we do see in our day-to-day job in the end. Each have different solutions in place currently, and each have been recommended completely different paths for their modernization journey. There are many different ways of adopting Agile and DevOps methodologies, and they need to be personalized to the customer specific situation. There is absolutely no one size fits all in modernization and in digital transformation. We, in Micro Focus, we are agnostic in terms of tooling, and we provide a high rate of integration with many industry standard tools. So we can really say that we're agnostic in this, and our end goal is to see our customers thrive in their field. And ultimately, we do believe that the fastest way for our customers to achieve their success is to bridge their existing investments with the new technologies and new investments that we can see come out every day. So I hope this provided a good overview. And I will now open it for questions. So yes, you can use the Zoom chat box. You can also contact me on my email address. That's julia.sermon@microfocus.com, on LinkedIn @julia.sermon, and on Twitter @julia.cbl. I'll now just open the chat. So the question is, you mentioned lightweight IDE. What is the benefit of this to the organization? Also, have you seen the deployment of Zoe in production environments? Any concerns? So the benefit of utilizing a more lightweight IDE, or in this case, it's a lightweight editor. So VS Code is just an editor with the support of essentially just like background tooling that is just the foundation for Micro Focus's IDE, so developer. The benefit of this is that instances that run VS Code can be spun up a lot faster. So especially when using a cloud infrastructure as a service platform, this means that it's simply going to be less expensive for the customer to do this. For the second part of the question, have I seen the deployment of Zoe in production environments? Actually, not yet. I have seen it used in some, so the most I've seen it is actually concerning the Open Mainframe project COBOL training course, which I followed previously. And so that's the most that I've seen Zoe used in, as well as a few conferences last year here at the GSE. So as of today, no, personally, I have not seen a customer use Zoe currently. Gary?
Sorry, if I may. So to both points, really, further advantage with the lightweight, as you said, it's not really an IDE. So Visual Studio Code provides editing capabilities, and within that, then the ability to add tasks, tools that the individual developer or an individual development organization can define to consume services. So if you take a basic development scenario that we're talking about here, I can edit my code. I then need to be able to compile my code, and then I need to be able to execute tests against my code. Okay, those are the basic capabilities. And what Visual Studio Code gives you there is the ability to interact with the tools that provide those services. In our case, Enterprise Developer provides compiling, and it also provides an execution environment in which you can then run and debug your code in conjunction with the extensions that are provided. Obviously, in Julia's diagram, it also shows the Zoe Explorer interface that combined with it, so that you can interoperate with resources on the mainframe in conjunction with the development environment that you're doing locally under Docker. So the advantage there is the flexibility. Okay, it means that with the learning curve, with the transition to the modern tooling capabilities, it may be that 80% of your developers only need certain functions. You don't have to maybe say wade through a very feature-rich IDE that you might use with other technologies, and you just sort of take the capabilities that you need and use them in this agile framework. So that's an extra advantage of using that lightweight. Also, it's something that's used more heavily now within the off mainframe development teams. So if you're talking about using feature teams and shifting towards an agile methodology where you work in feature teams, then your developers that might be writing your C# or they might be writing some other language, Java or whatever it may be, may also be consuming these same types of technologies. So you're sharing the technologies across all the development organizations. So those are some of the benefits. As for Zoe, we're not a Zoe expert, obviously. We're part of the working group, but individually, my understanding with Zoe, it's that there's a complete security-based infrastructure. I don't know if that's really the driver behind your question when you're saying about any concerns with Zoe being in production. There's a complete security profiling system that comes with the Zoe interface. It underpins the CLI and the profiling that you use when you're setting up your integration through either the CLI directly or using the Zoe Explorer within Visual Studio Code. So from that aspect, I would not have any concerns around extending the visibility of your mainframe assets to something in the distributed world through the Zoe interface, because that security is already baked in. So if it was a security related question, that would be my response to that. Atul, I don't know if that was where you were leaning.
Just to add to that, I think that Zoe actually allows for like extended logging logging in capabilities. So for example, like passwords, I don't think are limited to 8 characters and similar. So if anything, it probably adds security. Again, if that was the concern, let's say. Also, regarding Visual Studio Code powered by Enterprise Developer, if you remember the previous fictional customer, I mentioned the set of RESTful APIs that can be used to deploy and set up instances. Very similarly, they can be used with alongside the tasks function or tasks file in Visual Studio Code to essentially make up your own menu, your own personalized menu. And by clicking on the menu item that you have set up, it will call the REST API and run the task in the background, essentially. So that is what we consider to be one of its main advantages, because it is both lightweight and can provide the same exact functionality as a full-blown IDE, but without the essentially without the learning curve. Because all it needs, all it takes is knowledge of some JSON to set these up. So. I see. So the same person in the chat wrote, my concern is that you're recommending Zoe to a customer without having firsthand experience of it. But thank you for the answer. Yes, you're correct. I am not an expert in this, but I have also I've also been working in this field for about 1.5 years. So I'm really trying to essentially dip my toe into many different technologies. So before recommending the use of Zoe to an actual customer, I would absolutely make sure to know about it very well and get a lot of firsthand experience. And this is also why I decided to essentially present fake customer scenarios. I do not want to recommend something to a customer that I do not know firsthand, and I would not do it.
Okay, and I'd just like to say, and that's a laudable statement from Julia, but you have to bear in mind that Julia works for a large organization, and within that organization we have many senior consultants that have more exposure and more experience with Zoe and dealing with customers using this technology, as well as the fact that it isn't just Micro Focus that recommends the use of Zoe. This is a it's part of the open source open mainframe program, and is a widely used technology. We do have Zoe, and we do have experience of using Zoe on our own mainframe internally. So this is not just something that we're just positioning. So there's a wider level of experience. I think Julia here is just talking about her personal experience as opposed to the wider experience of the organization for which she works.
Yes, I was absolutely just talking about my own personal experience.
Thank you very much. And although they were fake customers, I hope they weren't fake cat CEOs.
No, the cats were absolutely real. CEO of this house. I will, yeah, if there's no more questions, I will just invite you again to complete the feedback form. It would be very much appreciated. As you can imagine, this early in one's career, I need feedback and I will take it on board. I appreciate any comment that you might make. And again, you can access the form through the link on the screen. If there's any way to put it in the chat as well, Stuart, please. Or you can also scan this QR code at the bottom left of the slide with your phone camera. And as a reminder, the session is 2AG.
The feedback, Julie, can also be done through the build your own agenda slide.
Oh,
so
yes.
Individuals can click on the bottom of the, I don't know what color I was allocated this year. Let's call it puce or something. But if you click on the box at the bottom, it will allow people to give feedback to this session. So thank you very much, Julia and Gary.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I don't see anything else in the chat. So I will close just a few minutes early then.
Enjoy the rest of GSA, everyone.
Yeah, enjoy, and thank you very, very much for participating. It means a lot, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye now.